If you're in this business of creating your own reality, which all of us are actually in, whether it seems like it or not, you must have come across quotes like, "As within, so without." Or how about this one by Thomas Dreyer? "The world is a great mirror. It reflects back to you what you are. If you're loving, if you're friendly, if you're helpful, the world will prove loving and friendly and helpful to you." Buddhism goes as far as to say the world is an illusion and it arises out of the mind. Similar ideas have surfaced in other spiritual and religious traditions as well, like Sufism in Islam and Christian mysticism. What all these teachings are pointing to is this idea of reality being a mirror and how the world reflects back to us what we are. While this can be a very difficult concept to grasp, I mean, it was for me. It took me 9 years to get a hang of this. As you can tell, it can also be extremely empowering. Hi guys, welcome to the channel. If this is your first time here, I'm Saad. And after 10 years in corporate, I set on a journey to heal my trauma and anxiety. And now I feel a deep sense of calling to help other people to do the same. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the mirror principle, what it is, why it might be very difficult to grasp as a concept, how we go about practicing it in our day-to-day life and use it to shift our own reality. And I'll share a little bit from my personal experience as to how the mirror principle has been showing itself in my day-to-day experience. So this is gonna get good. Grab yourself a cup of coffee and let's dive in. So what is the mirror principle? As the quote say, essentially the world echoes back to you who you are. This is going to sound very woo, but who we are is a collection of our thoughts and emotions, and then those thoughts and emotions get converted into energy, which we then send out into the world, and the world picks up on that, responds accordingly, and tosses energy back to us. So we are in this business of playing ping pong with the world. And I think this is best demonstrated in our interactions with other people. So we'll do a contrasting example to illustrate the point. Think of a person who is very socially comfortable and generally is excited to see and meet people. So when this person comes into a room, he brings with him a certain kind of energy, and everyone seems to respond to that energy by being very welcoming and smiling and friendly to him. In contrast, think of someone who has a lot of social anxiety, kind of shies away from people and is uncomfortable in interacting with them. So when this person walks into a room and someone tries to make a connection, they are essentially thrown off by that, which in turn throws off the person who was trying to initiate the connection. I'm sure you can relate to this if you pay attention to social interactions in any kind of social situation, let it be work, networking events, parties, whatever. It's a very similar thing with money. Let's say you are an entrepreneur who has a product to sell, but has got all sorts of mental blocks around money as to how money is evil and rich people are crooks. What do you think that's gonna lead to? You're probably not gonna be comfortable learning about sales and doing sales calls and sales pitches because you think money is evil, right? And what do you think that's gonna lead to? Even if you manage to get on those sales calls, you will come off as inauthentic because you think that doing sales is bad. And that's exactly what your prospective clients are gonna echo back. And this is not only true for the individual, we see collective manifestations of this all the time. The biggest example being wars. One country thinks that it's going to be attacked and it's constantly under threat. So it starts taking preemptive measures which are not perceived very well by the other country, and then the tension starts brewing. And if that tension is not navigated properly, we end up with wars. All of these are essentially the mirror principle at play. Now, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, this could be incredibly difficult to grasp because a lot happens happens in the world that points to otherwise, or at least it seems like in the moment. For example, you say hello to someone with a high spirit, and this person doesn't even look at you. Does that mean the mirror principle is not at play? Well, you could argue that it's not, but what's important to understand when we say reality is a mirror, we don't mean it's a direct equivalent of the physical mirror. The mirror of reality has nuances to it, which we'll come back to at a later point in this video. But another reason this is a concept that could be very difficult to understand is because most of us, we have been raised to believe that we are a function of the external and the world forces us to be a certain way. For example, you are supposed to react and curse and yell if someone cuts you off on the road. If another colleague gets the promotion that you were looking for, you're supposed to get jealous. You're supposed to be angry and miserable when the person you want to date doesn't like you back. In all of these examples, see, something's happening in the world out there, and then that is influencing our internal. As we grow up, we see people around us believing in this paradigm, and we start believing in it too. And every time we feel a sense of indignation or being wronged or any kind of negative emotion for something wrong happening out in the world, we feel a sense of conviction around that. And that pattern gets lodged over decades. So now you're in your 30s and someone comes in and tells you that reality is a mirror and it only echoes back to you what you are, meaning your thoughts and emotions. Understandably, we experience a lot of resistance around that. So our reactions to that could range from something like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, man, to all the way to get the fuck out of here, you're delusional. If you feel anything in between, I feel ya. That is exactly where I was 3 years ago when I was severely depressed and my world was burning, literally. But you're watching this video, so I'm sure you see a hint of truth in all this. A part of you is like, maybe there is something to the idea of me cultivating the right thoughts and emotions and sending the right energy out there in the world, and that leading to shaping my own reality. So let's put the skeptic aside for a bit and focus on understanding what the mirror principle is and how we're gonna leverage that to create our dream reality. So the first key thing to understand about the mirror principle is we shouldn't try to manipulate the image in the mirror. What do I mean by this? A great example would be trying to appear socially confident. And the most common approach that people take to appear socially confident is they would make certain behavior changes, learn how to be more funny, which involves learning lines or jokes. And then when they find themselves at a party looking for the perfect opportunity to make themselves appear that way. Now, does that work? Yeah, it does. But the issue with that is, since the way you are trying to appear is so far removed from your self-concept, it becomes very exhausting very quickly. So instead, if we ask ourselves, why is it that we're not appearing confident? Okay, it's because we're somewhat uncomfortable in our own skin. Then we ask ourselves, why is that? Maybe I don't feel safe. I'm scared of being judged. And then dive deeper into that as to why is that happening. Okay, this is because something happened in the past where I was humiliated in a social situation and I'm worried that that's gonna happen again. And then eventually, as we do that work, we realize that for one, if that happens, it's not the end of the world. Our sense of self could still remain intact, which creates a sense of safety, and it happens less often than the brain would want us to think. Now we are fundamentally comfortable and safe amongst people, and that lets us be ourselves. And then our natural charisma and flow and curiosity shows itself, and we appear confident as Neville Goddard would say, without having to lift a finger. This is what it means to change the object that's being reflected in the mirror instead of trying to manipulate the mirror itself. We don't want to change the image by manipulating the mirror and applying all the force there. The actions that are needed to change the image should spontaneously flow out of our self-concept. Well, on to the second key concept. It takes time for the mirror of the world to reflect what we want it to reflect, or more accurately said, what we are. This is very important to understand if you're trying to leverage the mirror principle to manifest material desires. Maybe you are looking for friendships in your life and more human connection, and that's hard to come by if you're someone who's socially uncomfortable and has a huge amount of social anxiety, as I had back in the days. So now you learn about the mirror principle and reprogramming your subconscious mind, and you start affirming and sending good thoughts and energy out to people. Don't expect that to lead to results right away, because people out there who composes the mirror of the world, they have a certain perception of you, and it's gonna take time for them to receive what you are sending your way. So we can't get thrown off by not getting instantaneous results. We need to persist in our assumptions, as Neville Goddard would say. Another example to demonstrate this would be an entrepreneur trying to make a certain amount of money. So the entrepreneur has a passion to solve a problem. He pours his heart and soul into solving that problem, and that enthusiasm trickles to his customers and meets their needs, and he gets paid back in money. But see, in both examples, for the world to echo back what you want from it takes time. Why? For one, thoughts and emotions are in the imaginal reality, which means they move very fast. You can conceive 50 ideas in a minute, but turning those ideas into reality will take a lot more time. It's the same idea. Movement in material reality takes time. And this is very important because we don't want to see things not happening in the material as evidence to the mirror principle not working. Well, the third concept that I want to touch on is the mirror echoes back to you what you are and not what you want. What does this mean? Again, let's get back to the example of wanting more social connections and love and warmth in your life. If we approach our relationships with this mindset of we need more love and more connection, people are gonna pick on that. And if I have to commit to giving something to you, be it emotional support or love or connection right off the bat, I'm not gonna be interested in that relationship. It's very interesting how you see that manifesting in human relationships. That insecure, needy energy of wanting just throws people off. There's this saying in Bible, he who has will be given more, and he who has nothing, more shall be taken from him. While it sounds very harsh, I have seen it to be largely true in both human relationships and in business, in my corporate career. And if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. In relationships, if you put out positive energy, that is what people will echo back. In contrast, if you're clingy and needy and are constantly demanding things out of your relationship, it just throws people off. Same idea when it comes to business relationships. I used to pester my managers at work for promotion. That is not to say you shouldn't argue your case and go for what you want, but in retrospect, I could have brought in a very different energy behind it. And understandably, oftentimes I was met with a lot of resistance and hesitation on my manager's part. Don't get me wrong, I eventually got my promotion, but the path to it could have been a lot more pleasant. So going back to our example, making new social connections, if you come from a place of abundance and joy and happiness, and now you're curious to meet people and to learn more about them, that is something that we human beings naturally gravitate towards. When approaching prospective clients, instead of being like, you have to take my product, I only have this one-time discount that you're gonna miss out on, if you're like, hey, this is what I have to offer, and should you choose to buy it, if it's a good fit for you, I'd be honored to help you. That makes people act very differently. So for the world to echo back what we want, we have to become the version of ourselves that is deserving of what we want. Okay, so now that we have an understanding of the mirror principle and how it works, let's go over a few practices that we can adopt on a daily basis to leverage the principle to shape our reality. This is an idea from 19th century New Thought teacher Neville Goddard. So usually when we seek something, we seek it because it's not the object that we want, but the feeling that it's gonna bring us. Let's say you want to manifest a job at a big tech company, like one of these FANG companies, as I was trying to back in the days. So if we keep asking ourselves as to why we want that, the first answer is probably gonna be money. But then, why is it that we want the money? It's probably because we want to have certain experiences, because maybe we want to go on a vacation that we have been dreaming about. Then again, you ask yourself, why do we want to go on that vacation? And the answer to that would be because it's gonna make us feel good. It's gonna make us feel happy and joyful and excited, and this sensation of novelty. So most of us, we go about our lives in this state of lack where the object of desire is far away, and now we have to grind and hustle to make the money to get the thing. Instead, with the feeling of the wish fulfilled, what we do is we create the state of abundance and the feeling that we want to feel had the goal already been realized, and then go about our lives from that place. We'll still go through the motions and do what needs to be done, but it's a very different kind of energy that's associated with our actions. And why is it that we want to do that? Like we have discussed before, the mirror reflects back to us what we are and not what we want. So if we embody peace, joy, happiness, love, bliss, and fulfillment, that is what is gonna be sent back to us. You're still going to work, you're still doing the work that you need to do to get the promotion, but you are just happy and blissful. What about negative emotions? Do they not have a place in all of this? Of course they do. If you're a Muay Thai fighter who is looking to win a championship and you're in the ring and you are all kumbaya, that's probably not gonna help. In those situations, you do have to channel a different kind of energy. Or take the example of drawing boundaries in a relationship where your boundary is constantly being violated. It does require being a little stern and serious, if you want to call it that, to enforce your boundaries, and that does have a place. But what I want you to realize is these are strategic ways of leveraging emotions to achieve a certain outcome, which is very different from being thrown off by whatever is going on in the external world. We want to be the wielders of our thoughts and emotions and energy, rather than them yanking us all around and making us do whatever. And again, the reason for that is the world echoes back what we are, not what we want. Well, the second thing that we need to do if we want to manifest in the mirror of the world is to tap into our power of choice. And when I say choices, I don't mean material choices like choosing an item from the menu at a restaurant or choosing a career. It's a choice of our internal state. So every time you're exposed to a situation or something happens in the material world, you get to choose your interpretation of it. Someone cuts you off on the street, you can choose to not to let it bother you. Someone else gets a promotion at work that you are looking for. Again, you can choose to not to let jealousy get a hold of you. And the reason we want to do that is because we have an understanding of the fundamental principle of the world mirror, which is it echoes us back who we are. And there are bonus advantages for this. If the material reality is not throwing you off, you just have more energy left to pursue your dreams and ambitions. Life just feels better when you are not constantly reacting. We attract the kind of people into our life who embodies the kind of energy that we want more of. And along with all of that, as we keep embodying our best self by making internal choices when it comes to thoughts and emotions, sure as hell at one point in time, the mirror manifests what we want it to. So the third practice that I have for you guys is practicing the art of letting go and detachment. So all of us, because of the conditioning and the programming that we are raised with, when things go wrong in the material reality, we attach to that. And depending on how strong the conditioning is, we launch storylines, which then leads to us reacting and throwing us off from this place of joy and abundance and peace. And that is something that we want to prevent. And the way to go about doing that is to be able to let go. Letting go is something that I have extensively talked about on this channel, so I'm gonna link those videos up there. The idea is, as we see energy rising through our bodies because of something happening that's not ideal, we want to let the energy pass through and get into a place of relaxation so that we can embody the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And as we stay in that place longer and longer, that speeds up manifestation in the material world, because the world is bound to echo back what we are. One key thing that I would like you guys to know is the goal is to not to go from a place of experiencing intense negative emotions like anger, frustration, and hatred to a place of love and joy and fulfillment. That would lead to forcing and suppression, which is not what letting go and embodying the state of wish fulfilled is about. Where it all starts is by getting into a state of clean slate, which is peace and quiet, and that is where letting go comes in. So we become relaxed, we let go, and as the charge of the negative emotions have died down, now there's space for positivity and enthusiasm and joy and abundance to come in. So letting go is where all it starts. In the beginning, as we start paying attention to how we react to things happening in the world, we'll see ourselves getting reactive and getting into a negative place quite often. And when that happens, we don't want to force anything. We want to let the energy pass through us and then embody the vibration that we want to. There's no forcing going on here. Also, as you see yourself reacting, see it as a sign of your awareness getting stronger, not as something being wrong with you. It is incredibly important to not to judge yourself for reacting, because these are patterns that has been lodged over decades. So be kind to yourself, have a sense of self-compassion. So that was it for this video, guys. I hope that made sense and you find it helpful. Understanding the mirror principle and looking at life and my interactions with the world through that lens has had an immense impact on my life. My relationships have transformed. I got from a place of having no friends and not being able to connect with anyone to having an abundant social life. My health has been better than ever, and it is because of principles like this I have finally managed to break hold of all kinds of limiting beliefs and being able to talk to you guys, which is something that I have wanted to do for the longest time. I'm sure if you keep at it, you will see wonderful results and you will be pleasantly surprised. So keep at it. Let me know how it goes in the comment section. If there is something that doesn't make sense and you would like me to elaborate upon, make sure to let me know. I love you folks. See you in the next video.